I have something to show you. It's a unit conversion utility, and it's one of the best ones that I've found, and I've been using it for years. And I think it was first released in 2001, so it has been around for a very long time. I've got it up here on the screen right now. So let's take a look at some of the things that you can convert with it. And I typically use it for converting from metric to imperial. Since I live in the United States, as a kid, I learned the imperial system. We didn't use the metric system all that much. But I found that the metric system is actually easier to use than the imperial system, and I'm pretty good with being able to convert in my head, short measurements, like no longer than a foot or two, since that's the units that I typically work in. But larger measurements, especially when you're talking about grams or liters, conversion utility comes in really handy. If you're a person that uses recipes, sometimes the amount of ingredients that you use in a recipe, sometimes they'll be in grams, they'll be in liters, sometimes they'll be in ounces, they'll be in cups, but you just never know. So it's really handy to have a conversion utility and, at your ready. This one, I always like installing an application if there's an application version of it. That way I don't have to be connected to the internet in order to use it. There is an online version. We'll also take a look at the online version. I've only used the online version for this tutorial, so I've always just used the application. It is an open source and free application, which makes it even better, right? The application will run on Windows and it runs on Linux. My operating system is Linux, so I've got it loaded up here. All right, so first let's look at unit of length. So all you have to do is type in, and I'm going to type in mm for millimeter, and then I'm going to tab over to the second box where it says from unit to unit, and I'm going to put in IN for inch, and you'll see it automatically selects that. Always take a look at it, when you're specifying your measurement at the top. Just take a look at the window and make sure that the proper one is selected, because there are sometimes, especially in weights and volume, there are different ounce measurements. There's like 2 or 3 different types of ounce measurements, so you want to make sure that it selects what you want. You can always manually select it from the list, so that's not a problem. So, and you can do it in either direction you want. So right now, down here, it's got unit 1 on millimeter, and it's showing that in inches, that is 0.0393 inches. But down here, I can put in 12 on the inch side, right? And then over here on the millimeters, automatically converts it to millimeters. So 12 inches is 304.8 millimeters. Okay, so let's say I want centimeters. Let's check out centimeters. So 12 inches equals 30.48 centimeters. And one of the reasons that the metric system, I think, is easier than the imperial system is going from millimeters to centimeters. All you have to do is move the decimal place, right? So in millimeters, it's 304.8 millimeters. Just move the decimal place to left one spot, and 30.48, you've switched it from millimeters to centimeters. So that works really, really well. So if you want to look at, let's say we want to go from kilometers and we want to go to miles, MI. So it did select, if I go over here, you can see it did select kilometers, it select length, and over here, if I highlight that, it shows mile. So if, let's say we put in 100 miles, how much is 100 miles? 100 miles is 160.93 kilometers. And I have kind of a funny story to tell you. One time I was going to be driving across 3 provinces of Canada, and I was going to take the Alaskan-Canadian highway. And I spoke to a guy who had made that trip into Canada, and he said, "Oh, you're going to love it when you get into Canada. The speed limit is 100 miles per hour. Now, this was a couple decades ago, right? Maybe 3 decades ago. probably before the speedometers had miles per hour and kilometers per hour on the same gauge in your vehicle, right? So this guy was telling me that, oh yeah, once you get into Canada, the speed limit is 100 miles per hour, and I thought, I can't be right. You know, in the United States, the maximum speed on the interstates at that time was just 65 to 70 miles per hour, and I thought, really, could it possibly be 100 miles per hour in Canada? So I I went into Alberta. Alberta was the first province that I went into, and I was on the highway, and I looked at the speed limit sign, and it was 100 kilometers per hour, not 100 miles per hour. So, to show you what this guy was doing, let's put in 100 kilometers per hour, or 100 kilometers. 100 kilometers is 62 miles. So if this guy was doing 100 miles per hour, he was thinking that kilometers was 1 to 1 for miles. So it was posted as 100 kilometers per hour, and this guy was driving. Let's see, 100 miles per hour. That's 160 kilometers per hour. So this guy was going over the speed limit, 60 kilometers per hour. Obviously, he didn't get pulled over because he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. I mean, it is amazing to me that some American is driving in Canada, going 100 miles per hour, thinking that 100 kilometers per hour is 100 miles per hour. Okay, so here's a cool thing that you can do with your measurements here. Let's say I want to know kilometers per hour. So I put my / and then I put hour. See? So it's giving me distance plus time. And if I go over into miles and I put / and I say hour, and it's going to give me distance and time. So now if you look at the conversion, it's showing kilometers per hour and miles per hour. So 100 miles per hour is 160 kilometers per hour. So let's put in 200, 321 kilometers per hour. Let's put in 60 kilometers per hour is 37.28. Now I ran, let's go ahead and switch this back to just distance. And one of the reasons that I know, some of these distances is, I've run a 10K before. I knew a 10K was 6.2 miles. So if we put in 10 down here on kilometers, you'll see that in miles that's 6.2. So you can do. I was able to do that conversion easy enough because I knew that a measurement of 10 in kilometers was 6.2. So if you're doing 100 kilometers per hour, it's 62 miles per hour. All right, so we go to grams. Grams and ounces. Okay, see, here's what I was talking about. You've got ounces of force. You've got a troy ounce. You've got an ounce, which is mass. Which is what I want to look at. It's basically weight. And then you've got imperial fluid ounces, and then you've got fluid ounces, which is the U.S. measurement. So you have to know which one you're going to need on the conversion. And since I'm doing weight, I'm going from grams to ounce. Okay, so one thing that I like to do is I like to fly RC aircraft. And there's restrictions on the weight of RC aircraft that you have to have it licensed with the FAA for anything over 250 grams. So if we go down here and let's see how much 250 grams is. That is only 8.8 ounces, just a little over half a pound. And is your restriction before you have to register it. So some of these measurements are really important, like in my case with RC aircraft. If I'm not familiar with grams, but I'm familiar with ounces and pounds, that tells me 250 grams of weight is 8.8184905 ounces. Okay, so now let's quickly take a look at the online version in case you're running a Mac, or if you would prefer using the online version rather than the application version, and there are links to both in the show notes. You can download it and install it, or you can go directly to the website and use it from there. So if we go unit conversion again, let's say we go to grams, and then we tab over and we go to ounce, and we have mass again. It's selected it by default, and we put in 250. You see we get the exact same number, 8.8 1849049 to be precise. And we see if we go to kilometers per hour and we go to miles per hour, it works the same way. 100 kilometers per hour is 62.137 miles per hour. So it's a very handy application and a very handy online utility. So another freeware application for you that works extremely well and is extremely handy. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next episode.